Hi, welcome everybody to another edition of hashtag Poetry Goes Viral here on the Carolina Poets Facebook page, or you may be watching us on the Wits and Poetry Facebook page, or you may have joined us on the new Carolina Poets YouTube channel. Thank you so much for taking your time to listen to some poetry this evening. We have a really exciting show. Tonight we are celebrating Women's History Month. My name is Kimberly Sims, and I'm the co-founder of Carolina Poets, along with Andrew K. Clark. I do the fourth Thursdays, and he does the second Thursdays, and it's just really been such a joy to interact with the poets and see just the large amount of talent that we have in the Carolinas, because we are constantly blown away by the amazing poets that have crossed the stage. If you ever miss a reading, you can just hop on to the YouTube channel, and all of our readings are archived right on Carolina Poets so that you can watch them at your convenience. You can even, if you have a smart TV, you can use the YouTube app and just basically stream this right onto your TV in your living room. It's funny, I'm in Greenville, South Carolina right now. I don't know what parts of the state, or if you're not even in South Carolina or North Carolina, but the weather has just been absolutely abysmal today. And so it's on these days that I'm really glad that I do not have to leave my house to go to a poetry reading anymore. I can do it right here from the comfort of home. I don't have to face the rain and the battle. So even though the world is starting to get back to normal, we're planning to continue to be here every second and fourth Thursday, bringing you three poets with Carolina connections. Tonight, the poets we have for you we have Jill Coyle, who is out of Spartanburg Methodist College and lives in the northern part of Greenville County. And we have Elaine Hill, who is out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And we have myself, Kimberly Sims, who I'm based in Greenville, South Carolina. So I'm really excited about this lineup. A couple of little housekeeping things. If you've not yet, please like our Facebook page, Carolina Poets, so that you can get updates about all of our upcoming events. Also, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're really excited that we have our custom URL, but we just want to continue so that you get notifications when we put up new content or if there are new broadcasts coming out. I'm chatting here just for a few minutes to give folks a chance to get onto the feed. Also, if you have any comments or any questions, please put those just below in the comments, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. So without any further ado, I am going to introduce our first reader tonight, which is Jill Coyle. Jill Ann Coyle grew up in the Pocono mountain region of northeastern Pennsylvania, where she developed a close affinity for nature, as well as a love for reading and writing. Jill currently lives on the southern edge of the Blue Ridge Mountains in upstate South Carolina and is a professor of English at Spartanburg Methodist College. In her spare time, she enjoys hiking, traveling, reading, yoga, nature photography, and poetry. Jill's favorite poets include Gary Snyder, David Lee, Mary Oliver, Jane Kenyon, Theodore Roethke, and Billy Collins. Her own poems have been published in Blueline, Main Street Rag, The Independent Weekly, Pinesong, Raleigh Review, When Women Waken, and Emrys Journal. Jill was awarded the Hub City Emrys Poetry Prize twice in 2015 for her poem Walker Creek, and in 2017 for her poem Communion. So please, everybody, put your hands together for a good friend of mine, Jill Coyle. Hi, Jill.
Hi, Kimberly.
I'm so glad to have you here.
Sorry. Thank you so much for that great introduction.
No problem at all.
I'm so pleased to be here and have this opportunity to share my poems.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm going to bring up you've got a little PowerPoint to share with everybody. So I don't want to use up too much of your time, but I'm really glad that you're here. And Jill and I actually like to do some hiking together. She also has a great passion for the outdoors of the Carolinas. So, and a lot of her poetry focuses on nature. So I know everyone's going to love it. So let me bring up your PowerPoint. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Jill.
Okay, thank you so much. So like Kimberly said, I love hiking, and I love taking pictures while I hike. I'm not a great photographer. I mostly take the photos to remember what I saw and later on use them as inspiration for poems. So I put together a little presentation. I hope it's going to work out. I always have a lot of anxiety over trying to do stuff like this with technology, but I'm learning. And I do have a presentation where I put some of the poems together with photos of things that inspired them. And if that doesn't work for some reason, we'll just do it another way. But I'm going to try to get this to work. So let's see. Okay, there we go. So my first poem that I'd like to share is Communion. This poem was inspired actually in my backyard. I have a patio, and sometimes I like to do yoga down on the patio, and the patio is on the edge of the woods. And so when I'm down there, I tend to observe some interesting things, and I get really close down to the ground. And on one occasion, I observed a snail, and this snail later became the inspiration for a poem called Communion. So without further ado, Communion. On the patio, after a rain, a snail moves across the flagstone stage like an ancient priest. Finding another's discarded shell, he solemnly stretches out his body and seems to sniff the ghost inside with all his senses trembling. He thrusts his thin bulk in a sweeping arabesque around the spiral to regard this husk of life from a novel angle. He shrinks back and braces against the hard earth, his body like a root of mandrake. With brazen force, he raises up the shell, reaching to heaven with half his length. He tests the weight of the thing, then down he sinks. Now he rotates the piece, and peering into the opening, he sets to work at something hidden. It is then I realize he is softly eating. So sometimes I'm inspired by nature because it is so surprising. And I didn't expect him to be eating. I'm not sure. I don't think there was another a snail in the shell. I don't know if he was eating the residue of something. But I guess I just found it fascinating and like strangely beautiful. But that's just me. And so I've once been told that my poems are painterly, and I guess meaning that they paint an image. And I guess I can see that. A lot of them are based on images that kind of stay with me, something I saw that I can't let go of and that's in my mind, comes out later as a poem. But also I do have this one poem that's an ekphrasis, and this is actually based on some drawings by an artist friend of mine. And I have a photo of the drawings. They're details, sketches of details of an old wooden barn. And so I was inspired to write Old Barn in the Sunlight. The barn's old body is open at the gable. The triangle precipice transforms its heart-held space into a sanctum of wood, dust, and day. Crooked boards loosely recline, propped against stronger planks, slouching now, but this only serves to let more life inside. Wooden pegs lie askew, as if the searching wind has pried the slabs apart to peek into half-light. As when in the quiet dark, a patch of air is illuminated from the side, and swimming in a shaft of light, the air we breathe comes to life. Flecks of detritus mingled with mites and hay, bits of seeds, the scat of animals, and what sloughs off of us imperceptibly all the time. Breath passing across the threshold like a sieve, the world passes through this body. So the next poem, I like to travel in addition to hiking, and I like to do a lot of outdoor stuff also when I travel. And the next poem is based on a photo I took when several years ago I was fortunate enough to travel to South Africa and go to Kruger National Park. And before I went there, I was looking forward to seeing all the things you kind of look forward to seeing in Africa, like, lions, elephants, giraffes, hippos, all of those big name animals that you associate with Africa. And I saw all of those. But the image that stayed with me the most was something I didn't expect to see, wasn't even thinking about seeing. And that was this little jackal. For some reason, and I photographed this little jackal, and for some reason, he or she, the image stuck with me more than any of the images of sort of the bigger, more famous animals. So I just had to write something about the jackal that I saw. So we get jackal. Ruby jewel set in topaz grass, ebony stripe along his spine, a velvet ribbon flecked with white diamonds. Padded down in the late afternoon heat, amber limbs languid, a memory of the morning's bone-grinding blood stunt rides his mind like a damned god. Heliotrope nose aglow, the jackal turns his face towards evening. What he doesn't know of beauty is more than enough. And another travel poem. This one is from a picture I took in Costa Rica. I took a picture here of these two iguanas. There were iguanas kind of all over the place. And I took a picture of these two, which struck me as kind of interesting, funny creatures. And we get two iguanas. He doesn't sweat on the hot brick paver stones outside the tired motel. Although the tourists step so close he can almost taste their legs, he doesn't move his taut body, not 1 inch. His head cocked, mouth a firm, thin line, his languid belly hangs low, flush with the pavement. Lavish crest stands erect along his spine. His delicate feet lie flat like smashed flowers, slender toes splayed like broken stamens. His eye, set like a metal stud in leather, follows her as she mirrors him. Her curved body like his own reflection, the subtle stripes banding her rounded torso like beaded belts, softly visible in the harsh sunlight. And all right, so this next one kind of matches the weather we're having. So we go from Costa Rica and South Africa, which were beautiful and bright and sunny, to kind of a gray day. And this one was inspired or near home on a gray day like today. And it's about a heron. Heron. I thought I saw a heron in a pond outside the gym, but it was so still in the distance. It could have been a stone, a log, a patch of dense grasses. I watched it from the window for 30 minutes as I ran on the treadmill. It maintained complete stillness. It was raining and the light was muted through the tinted glass. I watched a gray shape on a gray day. Inside, I could not feel the cold, could not hear the drops hitting the pond, nor sense the sharp breeze. The electric light was harsh, the machine standard, the air recycled, the playlist generically upbeat. I was a dim shape inside a large box, moving frantically, but never arriving, getting no further than the still heron. never even knowing if it was a heron. And they say that life is what you make it. So I'll imagine it was a heron, and that heron was me. And I loved the embrace of the pond's soft mud on my legs, the damp chill that ushers in early spring, the warmth at my white downy core, the gift of statuesque stillness on the wet quest for a slippery meal. And after the dirt and scales, after the muck and slime, I loved the slow lift and climb into soft nothingness as I rose and spread my unsoiled, silver-feathered wings. So you can probably see the heron in the photo. I used to have another photo paired with this where you really couldn't see the heron, but I don't think anybody believed that there was a heron in the photo, and I couldn't decide if that was good or bad. So I changed it to a photo where you can kind of make out the heron a little better. All right, I think I have time for one more poem. I don't want to use up too much time. So I'll do one more poem. And to brighten up the mood a little, we'll go to a sunnier place. So here we go. We'll go to California. And this poem was written at a friend's house in California a few years ago on a hot, dry day. And it is called California Pastoral. The bronze roosters on the bookshelf peck at the invisible, their vertical tails unfurled, spread in frozen feathered fans. Bodies arched, smooth heads cocked separate ways, stirred as if by anger or the hot breeze that hits the dry hillside, bringing the muffled buzz of highway noise. The wind moves fast, fast across the southern exposed valley, filled with pavement, people, plans, filtered through a patio screen into the living room, where a woman slowly paints a girl's eyelids frosty pink and blue, her fingernails apricot, her toenails iridescent pearl. I sit near a fading lemon tree, staring at 1,000 strangely shaped succulents in a turbulent throng of weathered pots, the patio furniture fuchsia and chartreuse, the yard burnt brown reduced to abject dirt, the palm fronds stiff and rattling, lizards lying desiccated in the sidewalk's cracks, only the spiny cacti plump, green, swollen, satisfied. So a completely opposite day from what we've got going on right now out here. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it.
That was great. And I have to say, I love that heron poem.
Oh, thank you.
It was really, and I believe you saw a heron because there's quite a lot actually up in the mountains of South Carolina.
Yeah.
That was fabulous. I love how nature focused you are and how you take just such a detail and just really find the wonder in the small details around us. And I really admire your poetry because of that.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for sharing with us. Okay, well, I'm going to pop you backstage and then, but you're not off the hook because we're going to bring you back at the end because I have some questions.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much, Jill. And Jill, where can people learn more about your work if they wanted to get more information about what you do?
Oh, wow. I have a website. I haven't updated in a while.
Yes.
So I will pop it in the chat.
Great.
Maybe I will go update it.
Awesome. And I think some of your poems are on your website too. So people can actually read some more of your poems right there on the website as well. So awesome. Well, great. Well, thank you so much, Jill. And we will see you back here at the end of the reading.
All right.
Thank you so much. Awesome. That was so fun. Thank you again, Jill. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next reader because I don't want to lose her time. It's really funny because I actually met Elaine Hill I think at possibly a big writing conference in a bathroom, like a really long time ago. You know, when you're like at a conference and you're in the bathroom, you start talking to random people, and we were both like, oh, we're from the Carolinas. And I ended up then getting to know her once we got back to the Carolinas, and have done a lot of shows with her. She is a really wonderful performance poet, but also does a lot of stuff on the page too. She has a great new book out, but I will actually read her wonderful bio. Elaine Hill performs, lives and teaches in Charlotte, North Carolina, where she lives with her two children. With previous scholarship in the cognitive realms of language, her process of healing mental and physical illnesses and relational upheavals has shifted her artwork to craft and emotionally poetic experiences from the languages of the soul. She is the author of 2 collections, a chapbook entitled 1,000 Small Poems from Early Motherhood, and a full-length collection, Sing Me Back Home, forthcoming from Reader Green Books in the fall of 2021. Her work is forthcoming in Voice Lux and 2 British journals and has appeared in Levy, Contrary Magazine, and has won awards in South Carolina. So I'm very excited to please give a big round of applause for Miss Elaine Hill.
Yay. Hi. And this is
Hi.
good job, Jill. That was beautiful.
I know her poetry is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Elaine, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm really excited. I think so many poets are hesitant to write about their experiences as mothers. So I think it's really amazing that you have written a book of motherhood poems, because that should be celebrated. So I'm really excited to hear some of those and some of your new stuff as well.
Yes.
But anyways, I'm going to pop backstage and leave you to it. And I will see you here in a few.
Sounds good. Thanks. Hi. Yeah. So super fun for Women's History Month. We are going to kind of step into the women's history that isn't necessarily celebrated and talked about, but that is a big part of being a woman, and that is motherhood. So I do have a chapbook out. It's sitting right beside me right here. This is it. So 1,000 Small. It's available on Amazon. You can also message me directly and I can send you. And if you do that way, I can sign it for you. I will do that. So I'm going to read a little bit from here. My upcoming chapbook with Red or Green Books, I'm also going to be reading a few pieces from, and then some new stuff just to celebrate women's history, some stuff that's as yet unpublished, kind of working towards a different type of book for my next book. So we'll get into it. It has been raining, as Kimberly was talking about today, and it was crazy. I definitely got caught in the rain. My hair is like still a little wet because I like literally got caught in the rain coming without a rain jacket, and like the raindrops were as big as the cherry blossom petals. Like they were all falling. Like it was a very classically spring in the Carolinas moment, where like the cherry blossom petals were falling and the raindrops, and they were all the same size, and it was all very wet. And I had a petal stuck on my finger as I got into my car, like dripping. So the moment. So I'm going to read the title poem from this book, 1,000 Small. It rained today. Forgiveness is a time bomb of roses, both petal and thorn. My daughter at the door, a barb embedded her dog's tender paw. Can he come in? She asks. I watched the window's pink shimmer. Let water fall over plates. Hold open my palms. Allow droplets to spill iridescent petals. I planned to be a doctor, to have a research degree in the Netherlands, to live on edges I could only dream, to have all my work published. Clouds settle low. Dog, daughter, mother huddle close. Dry hands, tweezers, surgery, release the barb. Puddle of blood pools, daughter's tears I relinquish. In the rain, haze heaves from an earth of what could have been. The pup limps for a minute, returns, licks my hand. 1,000 small whimpers explode to a song. So that was 1,000 Small from this book. Cop it while you can. Moving on, we will step into some of the, going from that transition. The next poem is called The Way to Experience Grief is to Come Back to Yourself. The 2020 was a difficult and major transition year in my life. As for so many people, everybody has their own stories around and about it. And this was one of the poems that came out of that will be in my forthcoming book, Sing Me Back Home. And so I'll get into it. It is literally about just kind of allowing yourself to sit in the grief, even if it doesn't feel like it's going to go away, but it's part of being human, yo. So the way to experience grief is to come back to yourself. This is a love poem to the dark. I have trembled, have been helpless to its touch. These walls hem me in, envelop me a sulfur fog, moment so slow my breathing it could be the death of me. Take my life and bring it to its only natural conclusion. The ground slips from under me every step. Another heartbeat slips out from my breast. I sit on the edge of the bed, just breathing in, then out, knowing the water of the ocean keeps coming regardless of the drought, breathing in, then out. Grief's messy, chalk-covered painting. It's not weird. The hot of regret, cold of refusal, washing like waves. This is a love poem to the light. So constant, brilliant, beckoning, hiding. Shadows are deepest when light shines brightest. Grief shows up when I least expect it. It's okay when I only sense the light somewhere out there waiting. When I am ready, it is there, whispering, hey. This is a love poem within. Holy, sheer, willing to stay open to the possibility that this time I will not die. Complete, unrequited longing. Love is not as much a rival as a stay within the tide. Mountains only move when the heart behind them is unaffected by the outcome of their movement. Earth shifts only when no one is paying attention. This is a love poem to cycle. Cicada song sounds in trees. Crushed shell on the sidewalk no longer needs filling. Metamorphoses all around. Even breath flowers into rebuilding every ounce of a body. Cocooned caterpillar releases into primordial mush from whence wings are formed. Nothing Instagrammable about this process. Souls feel the burn as they transcend. This is a love poem to myself. I have been afraid of the dark, faced grief, to find dawn emerging, a sliver of pink along tree line after deep blue covering of night, graceful strength in the fight out of encasement. I see courage to fight wings back into the light, let stars guide formation of flight body. This is a love poem to beautiful waking, perched bedside breathing, ocean washing, mirror longing, to knowing more about love than I do about trusting myself to say so. Grief, the deep that turns ends into beginnings. I feel like there needs to be a moment of silence after that poem, or else it's just me clearing my system. Yes. So in celebration of women's history, what I'm going to do tonight, which is something, because it's my feature, I can do what I want. With Kimberly and Jill alongside me. I'm going to read some poems that have been very fun for me to read and experiment with, that kind of have a mythological type tone about women and kind of empowering women in a very different way. One of them may or may not be completely finished, so you're going to get kind of like a half rough poem. Not this one. Well, this one needs at least one more edit, but you guys don't have to know about my process. So yes, this is the way I've chosen to celebrate women's history this time. This one, the title is In Broken English. He pauses. Don't cry. You are so beautiful. Words and eyes plead for a shine, to grace their souls so used to closed, to watch the burn, the ash in its dance, an open vessel chimenea, and see in it everything holy. No wonder we are called to worship a God outside ourselves, because the God inside, so much like rivers of a garden we never actually left. How we long to splash in the bounty of raindrops trickling down our skin and shudder to come to a place where grief or whatever catalyst hits stops us smack in our own bodies, where there is nothing to do, where love squelches through toes like mud, silence of our breathing allows the radiance of the world of 7 moons, 8 suns, and we have nothing left but to be, basking in rays, ground so parched we ask if we can drink her instead, her flow from before the time when a snake lived outside and there was separation between woman, man, God, beast, all so divinity and hope. When God passes by, she hides her face. That's why so many cultures cover their women, a deep knowing that the grace of her smile and flame can consume those gathered at her temple to worship. Those who drink taste the glory of her face alive to open its pain and pour until the other side joy comes bursting forth and covers everyone in their own bliss. Arms and legs flailing in a wild and raucous dance that none of the good kids will be comfortable attending. They will stay home to watch something that coddles their perspective of safety, and they will bow their heads and fold their hands. But the walls they built around the city keep the flames and dancing from coming in, and all the people outside know that rivers and flames and earth are where prayer lives, without fear, and in feet, skin, arms, the energy flinging itself off the ground in all of the faces of those that have seen God when she cried and set the world in motion with her voice. And we, like she, prayer is not a pious omen, but a wild cry, like the one that set the universe spinning, but more multivocal, since all the trees have voices that whistle like hands clasped around grass, and rocks sound clear and tempered by time's melody. And we are breathing when we remember that it is God who paints oxygen in the air for us to allow God into the party of our body living. Women have lived this all along, bearing the seed of God in deep night and bright day, felt the sun shine off their faces as they opened to release both divinity and earth between their legs, passing the fire to burn and dance this awakening to earth. Thanks for that. That poem brings me such joy to read. So thanks for listening. Yes, we're celebrating. This next one is the one that's like half done. I started writing it and I'm like, I don't have time to, because this one I kind of wrote part of today. So I didn't have time to finish it to its completion. So it will be what it will be at the moment. Right now, it is called Water and Wine. Sometimes my own blood smells like wine. That's why I know that being a woman is some kind of communion with Jesus. It goes without saying how the Virgin knew the feel of the entire universe cavorting in her womb before she condescended to allow anyone else to enter. Her vagina, a sacred space that birthed the cosmos before touching a man. When the earth lay formless and empty, the spirit whispered in word, brought curve and shape, painting color into landscaped hedge, blossomed ridges run under diamond-pricked skies, the flesh of earth ripe enough to taste. Woman, the horizon of the sky meeting land, water to shore, grasses give rise to the stately elevation of earth-formed peaks. You see, us women stand in our truth when we awake to souls holding an eternity already, burgeoning with the creation of all things, a tethered rope between death and its subsequent resurrection through the breath of creation. Salvation is ours when we realize who we have always been. It's no surprise that religion has been so concerned with stitching a woman shut, body, mind, and soul, afraid of all the light we might shed, afraid of all the wine we might pour, afraid of the laughter that heals and the beauty that might be ours to do with what we will. The water-turned wine of woman so divine flows where it needs to wet the springs around it from her fullness. So that's what I got for that piece. That's that piece, as people say. Yeah. I'm not sure if I have time for one more or two more. So I'll just do this one, and then this will be my last one, and I will be done. This poem, I feel like poems as a poet, I feel like, especially during the shutdown, I feel like poems for me have become like friends. Maybe that shows the severe antisocialness of not being around other people, but it's super fun to be able to write the words that help me make it to the next day, and be able to share them with you feels like an immense honor and gift. So I'm grateful for this time with you guys, and snuggling up on the couches and doing the sharing my friends. That makes it sound really weird, but whatever. Contacting me. These are my socials. I also have a website that I'm like, oh, I could have put that on there. Once again, Jill and I, we win, because I'm like, I have a website, but it's not really updated, but it does have a place that you can contact me directly to get my book. It's on there, or other things. Book me for resilience coaching if you want to. I do that too. So there's this, and I will drop my contact info in the chat as well. So this is me. This is where I am. And I'll do one more poem, and then then it'll be Kimberly's turn. It's such a gift to hear everybody read today. This one is called Bouquet. The trick to healing is allowing myself to be saved by the feet under my own body. Listening means shutting up the drown of city lights and country days to hear the blood glistening in my own veins, trust the pulse of my own wrist over the machine that tells me it is faltering. I allow my voice to blister into roses, dahlias, and daisies. I can handle anything. This war I've lived through, my body, a battlefield under a remembrance sign for all people. Do you remember the times I could have died? But look, I'm still shining. Look, I'm still climbing. Look, I've got dreams and aspirations. Just because someone says one way is not good or healthy, if it's your path, you best not go any other way, unless you want to give your dreams to someone else to carry. When we allow someone else to define our existence, we allow them to become our greatest enemy. So look within, see the heart beating. No, the rhythm is mine. The rhythm speaks of beats only I can drop, friendships I can make. This world is a treasure map of people helping. No one is a victim here, or stays one at least. It's time to start rising. It's time to start again. Our sweet souls emerging can be fanned into a flame hot enough to warm this whole city. Let it be the breath we breathe. No one else houses our dreams. They are ours for the unveiling. They won't be mirrored until we unwrap and place them in the crook of our arms like our own babies. Everyone in this nation has daddy, mommy issues, looking for someone to save them, hold them, when the hero is curled around the strings of their own chest, nestled in where safety is not a test, but a knowing. The trees give canopy whether or not we planted or watered the acorns to leaf. What if being who we are is not a fight, but a simple act of taking one more breath, living, stepping into the light of the sun emanating from our own chests? What if the way to healing is remembering how shadows and light play in the forest, and trusting the ground to hold us with each step forward?
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Elaine. I have to say, I particularly like your new poem with the women and the
Thank you.
Transformation from wine to water and all that biblical allusions that comes with that. And I was like, yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that was great. It was just a joy to hear you read. Thank you so much. I mean, tonight with Jill and you, this has just been such a stellar lineup. So I really appreciate it. So I'm going to pop you backstage, but you're not off the hook. Okay. We're going to have a little talk at the end. Thank you. Okay. And so Elaine is going to pop her contact information and her website and everything into the chat. So you can definitely follow everybody on Instagram, particularly I always follow people back because I know as authors, we are trying to grow our social media reach. So I'm sure the other authors would be the same way. If you follow us, I'm always happy to follow back. Thank you again to Elaine and Jill. And I'm actually going to finish off the night with a few of my own poems. I'm going to be kind of creepy now and read my own bio. But it has really just been such a joy tonight to hear these wonderful female poets on the microphone. So I'm very just honored to get to be part of this. Actually, I had just pulled up my, I had just pulled up my bio, but now I've lost it. So I'm just going to tell you about myself. So my name is Kimberly Sims. I'm from South Carolina originally. A lot of people associate me with Poetry Slam because when I was 18, I started the first Poetry Slam in South Carolina. However, I consider myself more of a page poet who also likes to write performance poetry every now and then. I love all poetry. It's just a joy to me to celebrate all the amazing poets that we have in South Carolina. My website is kimberlysims.com. I just got a new website that is 90% finished. So if you check it out, it's mostly there. But I'm going to go ahead and start with a few poems. So I don't know if anyone else does this, but sometimes I write poems in a form and then it doesn't work out. And then I go and take them out of the form and then they become real poems. So this poem was originally written as a villanelle, which is a form that I have not mastered. So I wrote as a villanelle, then kind of unvillanelled it, and ended up finishing it with my classic couplet. It's funny when you've been writing a while, you start noticing that you do things. Like I've noticed that I end a lot of poems with rhyming couplets, even though they're not sonnets. So this is an example of that. This poem is about my husband and I. We drove across the country before we had kids. And it was just a really great experience to see all the beautiful things that we have in this country. I'm really interested in conservation. I live in the Mountain Bridge Wilderness area, and I also, like Jill, love to hike. Love all the birds and the fauna and all the amazing things that we have here in South Carolina. So this is a poem that's a little bit more California. So this is called Route 1 Memories. And as a Carolina girl, I was pretty impressed when I went to California. It almost sometimes seems like another exotic country. So, Route 1 Memories. We are falling up, riding Altamuncus clouds, driving Route 1 in a 280Z, curving. Car, same blue-green as the sea. We hush onto the road shoulder, a payphone. You call home, the Pacific conducting its spray symphony before you. Redwood trees at your back. Port Town, we eat Dungeness crabs, wind driving our cheeks red as we spoon chowder into mouths, singing of the sea. In our turreted Victorian Airbnb, we are greedy for the sunset, waves thrashing the mica-flecked pebbles. We drive up onto Shasta Mountains, churn over ridges lined with fire-black carcasses of trees. We turn the curve, a forest of windmills on the step, thousands of turning blades singing clear-eyed future on pearlescent wings. So my couplet at the end ended up being, on the step, thousands of turning blades singing clear-eyed future on pearlescent wings. And that poem actually just won third place in the Georgia Poetry Society contest. So I was pretty happy with that. This next poem is called Homestead. And basically where I live in the mountains, I can walk out my back door and kind of walk up this old grabbing road, this old logging road and kind of be on the backside of Jones Gap State Park, basically. And so there's all these old homesteads up there, places where people probably during colonial times or in the 1800s used to live, and those homesteads are now gone. They've just been taken back over by the forest. It's an area that was clear cut one time and all of the trees have regrown. And it's just interesting to think about like how long the history of the mountains are. There's all these like old stills, and you just find weird stuff out in the mountains of South Carolina because people have been living here a really long time. This is called Homestead. It has an epigraph. But nothing is solid and permanent. Our lives are raised on the shakiest of foundations. A bolt of barbed wire, black with age, hints the way, jutting from the undergrowth like a wizened digit. The post long since decayed and lost to the crumbling host of litter. This sunken corner is a garbled message till we catch a tree pierced with another barb. A stone pile murmurs, entangled with the metal. This forest expands in every direction. Our eyes can see no horizon beyond it. Mountains surge as we weave up and down valleys, creeks, and ravines. 80 years, a forest has fallen and regrown. Homestead cleared, tilled, planted, harvested, then reclaimed by this hummocked beast. We follow the ancient line back to a single hearthstone and the outline of a foundation, a toppled stone wall, a brown bottle, all around us, a forgotten fence, an outpost to the past. Okay, this next poem is called Summer Swagger, and it's just a fun poem about, I just think everyone has that experience where at some point you're at like a big body of water and you jump off of a cliff into the body of water. For some reason, that's something that we do in the Carolinas. I don't know if you do that in the rest of the country, but here that's a pretty common childhood rite of passage is to go up to big cliff and jump off it into some sort of body of water. So this is called Summer Swagger. Late August, we are still free summer children. We run over the rocky banks, laughing in some chase game. Muscles flex, tense stretch, climb the steep, dig fingers into cracks, wrench ourselves up. Mountain expanse of water calls to us. My skin tingles with nervousness as I look down the 30 feet. Take my hand, you tender, we'll jump together. Wind races round my feet. We send out seagull wails, still breath for the plunge. My body is a scream, down, down forever in bubbles and buoyant, silent. We are carp pulling ourselves up through the water. We burst back into heat, howling out, triumphant bellows. Actually, in the poem, it was a friend of mine's older brother that agreed to hold my hand while we jumped off the cliff. Okay, I'm going to read. This poem is kind of nature focused too, but it's also a little bit more to do with Women's History Month. It's called Trespassing After the Hysterectomy. And this poem originally appeared in the North Carolina Review. It was a finalist for the Applewood Prize. Trespassing After the Hysterectomy. The lily of the valley, pearly bells tremble the way a child's mouth brims with laughter. Daffodils, headless green arms gesture, split heart subterranean, leaves blackened. Mole, how sweet is your tongue after your feast of bitter tulip daughters. Dark earth, how do you embrace the emptiness of your bloomless womb, your crumbling tubers? Lady slipper, my gloved hands long to plant, while your tendrils more exotic unfurl sharp leaves, pregnant blossoms beneath the last living hemlock. So that is Trespassing After the Hysterectomy. I did want to read a couple poems from my book, Lindy Lee's Songs of Mill Hill. Those poems are all from a new book that I'm finishing, because basically during the time that I wrote this book, I actually wrote a lot of poems that were not textile mill poems. So now I'm trying to bring all those poems into a book. But I did want to read just a few. I think I'm going to read one actually. So Lindy Lee is a book that follows a young girl who starts working in the textile mill when she's 10 years old. It is a book of women's history. Most people don't realize that 80% of the people that worked in textile mills were actually women and children. And so this poem is about a day when during the textile mills, came a point where they were changing their process and making more polyester. And so they actually bricked up the windows in most of the textile mills. And I thought, as like a worker, to be living or working in a place where it's all natural daylight, and then one day you're working in all fluorescent light, this to change to your personal landscape would just be really difficult. So this is just a poem that explores that. It's called Blue Pains. And this originally appeared in the inaugural issue of Cackalack, and where it won an honorable mention. Indigo, cobalt, azure, protection from the evil eye or wandering ghouls, cool icy streams, the color of heaven, Jesus's robes, hyacinth blooms. I always loved those windows. 20 years, those blue eyes met mine, a window to the soul. Mr. Stevenson sent the boys up on ladders, smashing, laughing with each rain of blue tears, blue tick, blue bird, blueberry. Shards settled in the grass and shone in the streaming sun like 1,000 eyes. Who knew mortar could be spread so fast? By day end, we stood in the fluorescent lights, surrounded on all sides by endless brick. But the debris called to us like jewels to crows. We couldn't help but pick up the shards, filling our aprons with textured glass, then stringing our porches with their blue song. This is gonna be my last piece. I decided I didn't want to end on a performance poem. This is a piece that I wrote a number of years ago, but I've kind of revised. And during the whole pandemic, this poem kept coming back to me. Because this poem is about just how we're constantly made to feel afraid of everything, to the point where it gets to the point where just nowhere even seems safe anymore. And I think that pervasive fear has been something we've all been living with for the past year. And, you know, I've definitely had my moments where I do crazy things like grind my own weed and grow all my own food. And I still have 14 chickens, you know, so I definitely am prone to doing kind of, and I mean, I was very prepared for the pandemic. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. So anyways, this poem is called Terrified. It started with airplanes. What with the failing airlines cutting flights and possibly corners, long lines, the war, deep thrombosis, and the advent of exotic respiratory diseases, flying was just too risky. But then there was the Amtrak disaster, the helicopter crash, crazy militias, murder hornets, riots, raging wildfires. It just seemed safer to stick closer to home. But then one night there was this piece on hard copy about wax-coated fruit, rat hair allowances, genetically modified stomach disasters. It was time to switch to organic food. I wondered what disaster is next, became obsessed with watching the news. Death was everywhere, what with all the human trafficking and Russian assassins and drug kings and contaminated water springs. So I began shopping online, telecommuting, cleansing my living surfaces with antibacterial bleach. I stockpiled hand sanitizer, canned peaches, and Scott tissue. I built a bomb shelter in my basement, bought a gas mask on eBay. Now that I didn't leave the house, it was much easier to keep abreast of current events that shape my world. I had 24-hour streaming, CNN, MSNBC, Fox Live, breaking news. But then Time Magazine ran that piece about microorganisms, about how they thrive in shower heads and vaporize in the steam. So I stopped taking showers. But then Newsweek described the toxicity of indoor air, the ecosystems in my carpet. I was confused. I didn't know what to do. Nowhere was safe. But then I realized there was space. I crawled my way into my solar paneled shuttle and strapped myself in place. I pressed my face against a high-tech bubble. This was it. With a button, I launched myself to outer space. Finally, drifting in orbit, I was safe. So this is kind of a silly and also very not silly poem about surviving the fear mongering that is our entire world. So that brings us to the end of my reading. My name is Kimberly Sims. I'm the co-founder of Poetry Goes Viral, and it's been a joy to share some poems with you tonight. But I'm going to go ahead and bring Jill and Elaine back up on the stage. Please give them a warm virtual welcome. This really has just been such a treat to have you both with us. Oh, hi, Rachel. Anyhow, I did want to just talk about too. I know that during the pandemic, this has kind of been a weird time for women. We've been, some of us have been homeschooling or trying to like adjust to weird virtual jobs. I just wanted to just maybe, if y'all could take a minute to just how being a woman during the pandemic, how do you just kind of feel like what the effect of that has been? Elaine, do you want to start?
Sure. I think being a woman in the pandemic, I think it highlighted the supernatural things that we were required to do. It's all of the balls that we have up in the air kind of all suddenly literally came to try to stay in our hands at the same time. And we're like, oh, they don't all fit. I wonder how that happened.
Right.
Which it kind of created this cacophonous, like, change or be changed. Maybe both. I think for everyone, at least that's the vibe I got. My life did that as well, in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think it kind of brought a lot of things closer into home so that we can really avoid them, literally closer into home.
Yeah. And Jill, you're an educator, so I'm sure that you had quite an unusual experience.
Yeah, it's been interesting to say the least. I teach college, and I've been teaching all online for the whole pandemic. And so that's a huge adjustment, not being able to really create that in-person rapport with the students. So I find that aspect of it harder. But on the bright side, I'm learning a lot of online platforms.
Yeah.
I actually have more time to myself because I used to commute 2 hours round trip to Spartanburg 5 days a week. And it really hit home. That was 10 hours a week. That's like a whole day. So
wow.
I have an extra day to myself. So I mean, there's pros and cons.
Absolutely.
But it's been strange.
Yeah. And I'm kind of, I'm an educator. I work in education, and I've been working from home, which same thing as Jill. Like, I enjoy not having to commute, but then having kids at home in the spring was a little bit, crazy. But I definitely feel like, I have a lot of female friends that have really had a tough time during the pandemic. So I think that Women's History Month this year, women are disproportionately, I think, unemployed after the pandemic and have, had to make a lot of hard choices. So, but on another note, I thought maybe we could is there a particular woman that is an inspiration to either of you as we're talking about Women's History Month? It doesn't have to be a famous person. That's a tough one. I've just totally put you on. So, I always just say, Eleanor Roosevelt and all her fabulous letters. But
tough one. When I was a kid, I admired a female marine biologist named Eugenie Clark because I used to watch all these nature shows, and all the nature shows, all of the scientists and announcers, and they were mostly all male. And there was one who was a woman. She used to go diving with whale sharks, and she was a specialist on whale sharks, and she was on several nature shows. And I just thought it was so cool that, usually you see on those nature shows a man in that role, especially when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s. And so I thought she was very cool that she was, doing this adventurous, dangerous, highly specialized thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't know why that popped into my head. That was so long ago, but it popped into my head.
That's a great example, though, when people are kind of doing things outside of the box a little bit. Yeah. Elaine, did anybody come to mind for you?
The funny thing is because of my current role or past role, I don't know what to call it, current role, being a homeschool mom already
Mm.
with the pandemic. So I'm creating a classical curriculum for small children. And in doing so, we studied the ancients. So fun fact, that was very exciting to me. I hope that I get it completely correct, and I may or may not. So the first known writer like that we have in recorded history was a female priestess.
Wow.
Inanna. She was a priestess of Inanna in not Mesopotamia, but in one of the first, in Sumeria maybe, in one of the first ancient civilizations. Like the first known writing that we have is from the priestess of Inanna in Hedwana, which she was like the daughter of one of the kings or something. So
That's awesome.
we have like
That is super
script.
cool.
Yeah. So when I found that out, I was like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, well, great. You know, particularly as writers here, that's like, yes.
I know. I'm like, yeah, woman writer, not only like the first.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, this has been really great. I just thank y'all for sharing your time with us. Audience, please definitely go and support these authors. Follow them on their social media. Purchase books, or just go check out their work online. We will be back here the second Thursday. April is National Poetry Month, which is almost upon us. And I think this year I'm actually going to try and do normally April is so bananas crazy for poets that I really don't get to write that much poetry. And so I think this year I'm actually going to try and do poem a day. Do you guys do poem a day?
I did one year. It was challenging.
Yeah.
I didn't do it the next year, but yeah, you should try it. It's very cool.
I'm gonna try and do it this year, I think. I mean, even if I write 30 terrible poems, I'm gonna give myself permission to write 30 terrible poems during the month of April. But anyways, we will be back here the second Thursday and the fourth Thursday in April. If you are an author and you have a book out and you would like to be featured on Carolina Poets, if you are, maybe you went and did an MFA somewhere in the Carolinas, but now you live elsewhere, or you used to teach here, please definitely send us a message and tell us about yourselves so that we can, we're happy to try and book, people. The whole reason we started this was during the pandemic. People's book tours were canceled. And so we just wanted to provide a place where poets could connect with audiences. And it's been really fun, particularly on a rainy night like tonight, to not have to leave the house and still get to do poetry. So, well, great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast. Jill and Elaine, thank you again so much. And everybody, we will see you back here. We're going to have Andrew curating the second Thursday in April. And this is Poetry Goes Viral on Carolina Poets.